Understanding the threshold of the celestial object.
About this video article. This article is being turned into a video article in 2023 and will be included in the 2015 flashback video article playlist for posterity. While the article could be completely rewritten to better communicate some of the points within, it is being created and included the way it was written, with some minor edits, primarily to preserve it, and to convey the thought process I was going through at the time it was written, and obviously, I had not come to the conclusions and realizations that I have now come to.
This article was written before I made the videos in the video series. Mass-matter function interaction of momentum. 5 videos in the playlist. I recommend you watch those videos.
Over half of the giant Kepler planets may not be planets after all.
A 5-year study of data from the Kepler Space Observatory has found that over half the possible planets it has identified are either eclipsing binary stars or brown dwarfs.
Our extensive spectroscopic survey of the largest exoplanets discovered by Kepler shows that this percentage is much higher, even above 50%. This has strong implications in our understanding of the exoplanet population in the Kepler field.
What they found is that 52.3% of the objects they examined were eclipsing binary stars, or pairs of stars locked in orbit around each other so that they pass in front of each other as we observe them. A further 2.3% were found to be brown dwarfs, gaseous objects that are too large to be considered planets, but too small to be considered stars. The study also uncovered some mysteries surrounding gas giants. For instance, gas giants' atmospheres are inflated by the radiation of their stars. But the inflation of some of the giant planets the team surveyed was higher than could be explained with the normal processes. Moreover, some giants that were only moderately irradiated were not inflated at all.
The geosphere is an inner layer of the Earth, extending from its surface to the inner core of the planet. This layer is made up of solid rock and habitable ground. The thickness of the geosphere is approximately 6,730 kilometers. The geosphere is made up of rocks, minerals, magma, and sand. The closer we get to the inner core, temperature, density, and pressure progressively increase. The geosphere is made up of 3 concentric layers: the crust, the mantle, and the core. The crust is the thinnest, outermost layer of the geosphere. The thickness of the crust varies from 5 to 30 kilometers, depending on where you are on the Earth. The second layer of the geosphere is called the mantle. It is 82% of the Earth's volume, being 2,900 kilometers thick. The temperature of the mantle is really high, ranging from 700 to 1,300 degrees Celsius. That's why it's made up of molten rock called magma. The core is the innermost layer of the Earth, and it is 3,500 kilometers thick. The inner part of the core is made up of solid iron, where the outer part is made up of liquid iron and nickel. The temperature in the core is ultra-high, ranging from 4,400 to 6,000 degrees Celsius. The wide ranges of temperature and pressure conditions in the outer core cause the molten metal to move. This results in the formation of electric currents that produce magnetic fields.
Understanding the threshold of the celestial object. December 6, 2015. We have been taught that as you go below the surface of a planetary object, things get hotter and hotter until the surface is no longer solid, and now you have a subsurface ocean of molten lava, and as you go even deeper you somehow find that there is a solid iron core? How could you have a subsurface of molten lava, where temperatures are hot enough to melt any form of matter, yet there is an agreement and evidence that the core is solid? Well, this information is only partially correct, and physics as we know today is also only partially correct. What is described as happening and what is really happening is a matter of perspective and scientific understanding.
Please watch The Sun's Corona and the Time Dilation Field. If you haven't already watched it, check it out after this video. In the video, The Sun's Corona and the Time Dilation Field, I explain how as you get closer to the center of the mass of a celestial object, the temperature actually gets colder and colder. This is the opposite of what is currently accepted in mainstream science models of the cores of planets and stars.
And isn't it interesting that Mother Earth does the exact same thing? As you get closer and closer to the center of the mass of the celestial object, time literally slows down and the temperature decreases. That's the main omission that mainstream science right now is saying, is that as you get closer and closer to the center of a star, it gets hotter and hotter. It's the exact opposite. Because there's a reduction in time. If you reduce an atom's time, you're literally slowing it down. As you're slowing it down,
with the concept agreed upon that the core is solid, but with no explanation for how the core could be solid in such high-temperature environment, or an explanation that defies the very laws of physics, being that the more pressure matter is under the hotter it must become to liquefy or melt, this being proven fact. So, we already can agree that the laws of physics that we officially agree upon today are inaccurate to say the least. So, now we start to realize that the core is actually a large solid iron core, under such tremendous pressure that the iron has crystallized into this new solid. All matter, with enough energy and gravitational pressure, will compress through the base elements from hydrogen to iron. Matter will transfuse down to iron, at which point it can no longer compress. After a point there is a threshold where the iron will crystallize and you get the solid crystal iron core, the building block of the cosmos, the celestial object. The building block of the cosmos, the crystallized iron core. Understanding this, understanding the threshold is key to a quick summary of the entire cosmos. Understanding the threshold or third state of the dark energy field, this is the void or the densest of dark energy in this universe. Threshold literally means holding back the void. I assure you, outside of exotic environments, the bulk of the cosmos will behave in exact and defined ways. Matter will behave in a very clear and predictable pattern as long as you know the threshold. So, what is the threshold? The threshold of the celestial object is simple: size, speed, environment. Environment can be defined as the state iron is in the approximation and influence of the iron core in relation to its host and other iron cores within its vicinity. Okay, so, any matter larger than say Mercury will be large enough to have a magnetic field. This is the threshold of matter in the majority of systems, to be large enough that the matter at the core is under enough pressure that it can transfuse to iron and crystallize. So, starting with the smallest of scales, we have celestial objects the size of Mercury. As we move up through the rocky planets, we have Earth and larger planets. And then we get into the gas giants, and then the brown dwarfs, and then the small stars, and all the way up to the biggest stars, and then we get into the exotics, black holes and neutron stars. But, what is the common denominator? What is the threshold that will determine the characteristics of these celestial objects? For this we need to quickly revise your understanding of physics and astrophysics and explain the way the universe really works. As concise as possible, matter and energy, and space and dark energy, their interaction is the foundation of all. Space and dark energy are the same, just as matter and energy are the same. Binary universe: matter/energy creates magnetic field, space/dark energy creates the electric field. Their interaction is the electromagnetic spectrum. This does not taper off into nothingness on either end. On one end of the spectrum, you have the beginning of matter or hydrogen. On the other end, you have the void or the dark energy field. So matter is literally being squeezed by dark energy, or gravity, from one state to another, and the light we see is the matter transitioning from heavy to light, as in light. All light in the universe is matter, and it has weight. This weight is gravity. This gravity gives rise to energy. Gravity is defined as the electromagnetic force matter exerts on the universe. On dark energy, this causes a dark energy field effect, or gravity. All matter within the crystallized iron core has combined and joined forces, not to push each other away, but because of pressure their electric charge has equalized and their poles have aligned, and the extra energy that was once reserved to keep the atoms individualized now leads to a magnification of their energy. Equals magnetic field. Once large enough to become a black hole, the magnetic energy stays in the universe the matter is in, but the electric energy now has no dark energy to travel on because matter has pushed away too much dark energy, and so therefore there is nothing for the electric force to flow on, and now the electric energy falls into the black hole, giving the black hole extra energy or life. But the point is that matter pushes dark energy away, and this is all tied to time. Time is the rate of decay of matter, or the speed of matter. So if there is no dark energy, there is no time, and matter will slow almost to a complete stop. Less dark energy means less time, more dark energy means more time. Looking at this, you will realize that matter crystallizing is actually done with a purpose: to stop decaying. If matter crystallizes and pushes away dark energy, it will not decay. No time means no decay, so crystallized iron does not decay or decays a lot slower. If all the atoms were individuals, combined, they have the power needed to push away the dark energy field, and herein lies the threshold holding back the void. Motion of matter equals gravity equals energy. All matter in the newly formed black hole will remain in the crystal iron form until the black hole gets large enough. At this point, the black hole will reverberate and divinity occurs. All the atoms within the crystallized iron core now reach a point of excess energy. This is the point of conception, the beginning of thought. The crystal iron core recompresses and reverberates, and now some space or dark energy falls into the core, and the core then evolves into the universe we see today. So all the matter that went into the supermassive black hole can be defined as only quarks. These quarks do not combine because there is no interaction with dark energy, but when the crystal iron core reverberates, this means that there is now some dark energy within the crystal iron core and a new spacetime continuum. Divided from ours, still connected but divided. The quarks now have some dark energy to move them. As the quarks start to move, they start to decay, and as they decay they turn into more dark energy, and so within the crystal iron core of the supermassive black hole, the matter starts to decay and move, and its very motion gives rise to gravity and energy. The faster matter moves over the dark energy field, the more gravity and energy it has, so as it moves faster through dark energy it has more time, and because everything is entanglement energy, as the matter moves through dark energy tries to entangle, never strong enough to make a lasting entanglement. The attempts manifest themselves as the massless particles, the gluons, electrons and photons, all of which derive their mass from the quark they are associated with. While the quarks slowly start to move, they slowly start to generate gluons and combine into groups of 3, forming the proton. As the proton moves, it generates the electron. As the atom moves through the dark energy field, it generates electromagnetic energy. This energy then repels the dark energy field, and the more matter moves, the heavier it gets. The more it moves. This is a force feedback loop. The universe is in a force feedback loop. All matter combines and recombines, and a new equal is achieved. A second reverberation and solidification occurs. I explain all of this in my video series, Mass-Matter Function Interaction of Momentum. Watch that video series for a better understanding of this. So the threshold could be defined as the instability boundary between matter and space. Looking at this, you will quickly realize that the idea that there is a deep liquid molten subsurface on large rocky planets is inaccurate, to say the least. Also with this you can extrapolate this to the entire cosmos. At the heart or very center of each celestial object there is no time and therefore no energy, very little, and as you move up from the center of the solid crystal iron core, you get to the threshold where time starts to have an effect on the matter. This is usually at the surface of the solid crystal iron core. So, you have on the surface of the crystal iron core, the threshold, the instability boundary between matter and space, and the key to the cosmos. Looking at this you will be able to determine the construct of the cosmos. The threshold is on the surface of the crystallized iron core. Planet Earth, with its crystal iron core under the surface of the planet, presents a great visceral example of this process in action. Under the accumulation of matter on the surface of planet Earth lies the threshold. This instability boundary is the exact same as the Sun's, Mars, or even Jupiter's. This boundary where matter's time starts to increase because it is no longer under the time dilation spell of the crystal. As this matter starts to get lighter and lighter, and its time starts to increase, its energy also increases, and because it is right at the threshold between matter and space, its energy increases and it gets hotter, and in getting hotter it can actually start to decay more, and so there is a threshold. This threshold is clearest on an object large enough to become a star, as the boundary between matter and space is observable in the form of light. For planets like Jupiter, the threshold is also on the surface, but because Jupiter is inside the gravitational and magnetic field of the Sun, Jupiter does not ignite. If it were to transition outside of the Sun's influence it would ignite. It is large enough to be a small star, aka brown dwarf. If all the planets were formed recently, in cosmic terms, they would literally all look like stars. Each large enough to compress into a crystallized iron core. Their threshold would all be on the surface. But because they have had eons to evolve, and because the smaller planets do not have the size or speed to blast off the matter that accumulates on the surface like a sun does, they become planets. The matter accumulates above the threshold. As for large planets starting with something between the size of Earth and Neptune, the threshold of the planet itself will be able to absorb matter that falls upon the planet and convert it to crystallized iron, and as the planet is actually decaying, the decay chain will produce light enough elements that they have enough energy and heat to be gas, slowly decaying back up the elements from crystallized iron to hydrogen, and all the while releasing the energy that went into the compression. The energy that went into the fusion of the iron core becomes decay energy. This is the gas giant. The gas giant is a large crystallized iron core, but because its mass is larger than that of the rocky planets, but it's still too small or slow to become a star, the gas remains trapped within the gravitational and magnetic influence. If this gas giant were to get larger, or increase its speed through dark energy, or be removed from the protective influence of the host star, the Sun, and be flung into deep space, it would ignite. The hydrogen gas atmosphere would become so energetic it would turn into plasma, it would burn, and the deep atmosphere would shrivel down to a thin layer of oceanic plasmic hydrogen, and the corona would see the hydrogen getting lighter and lighter and hotter, the heat from the corona reflected off the surface back out to space, compounding the radiant energy, illuminating the heavens and converting from hydrogen to light itself, back into the electromagnetic spectrum, out of the threshold and into the void. State 5 of the dark energy field is the crystallized iron core, the building block of the cosmos. Orion Michael Guy.